This episode of the Inferno is presented by Pearl River Resort. Pearl River Resort is the perfect place to spend a game day weekend. With gaming, golf, dining, entertainment, and more, there's no better place to stay and play. Today's episode of The Inferno, The Rundown, brought to you by Legacy Credit Union. Legacy Credit Union, the official credit union of UAB. This week in UAB Athletics, everything's go. Man, I mean, everything's on right now. That's unbelievable. We'll have Coach's Corner, a hot topic, and show me the money. We'll do it with Trent Dilfer coming up just a few minutes right here on The Inferno.
Trent Dilfer here, head football coach of the UAB Blazers. I want to tell you about my friends at Legacy Credit Union. Legacy began as University Credit Union in 1955 and remains committed to UAB faculty, students, alumni, and fans. Not only do they support the Birmingham community, but they are also proud sponsors of UAB and UAB Athletics. Visit LegacyCreditUnion.com and find out why you should become a member today.
Welcome back to another week of The Inferno. He is Mark Ingram, the UAB Athletic Director. We used to do a little show called The Director's Chair. We used to love that because you are the man who kind of can pull back the curtain. You were kind of like the Wizard. You're like the Wizard of Oz a little bit.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you get all the answers and you kind of tell people.
No, I don't have all the answers. Listen, I can give you an answer.
Well, people come to you for answers.
And make it up if I'm not completely clear on what the answer should be.
So this is one of the glorious times of the year because we have sports that start overlapping a little bit. We absolutely love that because my favorite two, obviously, are basketball and football, not to mention everything else that UAB is into. So I'm absolutely loving this time of the year. And then your first week there in hoops, man, 3 games right off the bat. That's good.
We had 3 men's games, 1 women's game, and the football game all at home this past week. Now, this coming week, what's interesting is we have none of that. We have 1 women's game on Saturday at 2 o'clock, Mississippi Valley State, 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, women's basketball in Bartow. That is our only home event this week. So, this past week, men's basketball lost a tough one to Vermont early, just couldn't make it fall in the ocean, really, had trouble shooting. But, I tell you, I want to thank our fans and our students in particular. We had great crowds. We had 3 of the largest crowds that we've had since we played South Carolina. Now I'm talking about non-conference. Yeah. So it's the 3 largest non-conference crowds we've had since we played South Carolina at Bartow, and almost 700 students at the first 2 games and 350 at the last game, which was a Sunday afternoon. And those are numbers for the fans. Those are good numbers for us.
That's fantastic.
A lot of people.
I had an email, info@tonycurryradio.net. Of course, you can also go to uabsports.com. There's a little chat on the bottom. You can email us. They wanted to know how many reward miles Mark Ingram gets at the end of the season. Because I
don't collect any reward miles. When we fly with the team, I don't get any reward miles there. But that would be nice.
This week you had
I do more
everything in your
time. I do more windshield time than
you could write that off on your taxes.
Yeah.
You obviously had everything at home, but then you have to have some times, I'm assuming, during the season where you're maybe gone for a week at a time.
No. There's too much. There's too many games between men's and women's basketball, and then when it overlaps with baseball and softball, I try to travel with all these guys once. Yeah. But I go to all the away football games, but you can't go to all that other stuff. There's just too many events on the road all the time, and that's all you would do.
But I figured you could probably look at something like the dude that takes his kid to every spring training game. He could sit there and look at his itinerary and go, okay, listen, we could do this, and we could do this volleyball game over here, or we could do this, and you don't do that.
I don't. I used to work with somebody who that's exactly what they did. This particular supervisor of mine, who I will not share who, but they would look at the schedule and seriously would be like, ooh, women's basketball, they're going to Hawaii, so let's go there. And then men's basketball, they're going to go to Palo Alto, California, and then so-and-so's going down to Miami, Florida. That'll be cold. Oh, that'll be a great time to go to Miami. And they just took all these great trips. And it's like, I know you're just supporting the team. It was a little obvious of the choices that were made, but no, I do not do that.
Another question we had, and I know you guys did the teddy bear thing where you threw the teddy bears,
toss,
which is a teddy bear, which I absolutely love.
It's fun.
You do the Children's Harbor game. You're always giving back to the community through UAB. Christmas, I can't believe it, and I can't believe that Halloween was already like 2 weeks ago. It's crazy how fast time is going. What do you have any special things coming up for the holidays?
Well, we're also working on something with the Birmingham Community Kitchen to try to get some of the food that is left over after the football games and start to donate that to some of our shelters, because there's too many people, on the streets of Birmingham that are hungry and eating out of trash cans, and there's really good food that's going to waste. And so we're working with them. That's a kind of a new item we haven't made public. We haven't gotten all the details finalized, but something that we're working on. Now holiday related, this is something I was curious to know. We talked about Buc-ee's once before on this show, and I'm curious. I went there the other day to get gas, and I thought, wouldn't it be a fun challenge to try to do all of your holiday shopping just at Buc-ee's?
Oh, I mean, just slam dunk.
You totally could do it, but could you do it and get away with it without anybody knowing that you did it? Could you buy enough gifts that didn't have the beaver on it to make it obvious that that's what you got?
You know what Buc-ee's got going on? Buc-ee's has got the thing going on that when you go there, you end up buying stuff.
Just the essentials like foam cowboy
Buc-ee
hats.
Nuggets, you end up buying things because you're there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're on vacation, you end up buying little trinkets and
But
things.
I'm starting to I'm trying to think about, I want to get in front of the holidays this year, and I'm thinking, I was there and I thought, boy, would that be something if you could do all of it.
What is something at Buc-ee's that Mark Ingram would like? I mean, they got everything. They got turkey fryers. I mean, there's really nothing. Do they sell cars there? Don't they sell cars at Buc-ee's?
20 different flavors of beaver nuggets. They're all horrible, and I buy them every single time I go, and I can't stand them.
Yeah, I did the
good people at Buc-ee's.
I did the beef jerky. I did the beef jerky thing for the first time last time, and it's
use a straw hat.
But see, that's one of those things where you're there and you're in it.
Yeah.
And you get the root beer like this big, and you get
48 ounces of watered down cherry Coke.
Yeah, and then you get the beef jerky, and it sits in the refrigerator for 3 weeks, and you're like, "What was I thinking?" It's like $17.
Yeah, you get a Yeti cup with a beaver on the side. These kind of things. These are important items.
Yeah,
anyway, I didn't mean to get off topic there, but you said holidays made me think of that.
Okay.
There you go.
Shall we bring the man on next?
Absolutely.
All right, Trent Dilfer, your UAB head coach, coming up next.
The if in life, it's a world of possibilities. If you go for a night out with friends, if you can keep an eye on your money along the way, if you know you have overdraft protection with no fee transfers from savings, when you get a low balance alert, it's easier to say yes to fun. If that sounds good, try Regions Life Banking.
Stay ready for the if in life. Regions Bank embrace the if in life.
The Inferno coach is currently the hot topic, brought to you by Viva Health and Pepsi. He is the head coach of your UAB Blazers, Trent Dilfer. Difficult game this past week against UConn, the independent. A team obviously won 6 games, and you're sitting there 23-10. I'm sitting there watching intently. I'm thinking, okay, this is looking pretty good. I hate turnovers. I'm just going to say this as a fan. I don't ever look. I mean, I saw a ball game last night where a team threw 5 picks, and they were down 16 in the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning the NFL game last night, the Detroit Lions, right? So I realize that when you have, I know Miles is happy about that. I realize that there's the numbers when you have more than 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers, blah 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 blah. It doesn't dictate how your team is actually playing the game, and that's what sucks when you have a game like you had where you're 23-10, you're up at the end of the game, and a couple of bad fumbles just kind of totally turn the game on its head.
Gutted. Yep. You starts with a first down, and the worst thing is they're on first down. Because that's we're about 7 plays per drive, so that's 21 plays that you're taking away from your ability to play offensive football, and we're playing at a high level, 300 yards in the first half. So the interception's bad decision. The second one's an incompletion that for the first time in the history of college football was ruled a fumble. Mm-hmm. And then the third time, I get it. Like the ball does come out. Now on replay, it looks like comes out after his baby's knee hits the ground. But that's why we teach you got to hold the ball through the ground. So it just completely hijacks your ability to win a game that you're playing pretty high level in all 3 phases. So we don't practice those things. We actually practice the opposite. But this year, and really my whole tenure here, it's been the story of how we lose games is we give them away.
Yeah. What was said at halftime? Because you were rolling. Mm-hmm. You had over 300 yards, and obviously the first time in quite some time, with exception, obviously, the last game you played where you had a blowout. What did you say at halftime as far as in keeping your composure and not having those issues in the second half? And what did you say at the end of the game?
Yeah, really halftime was simple. Is do more of that. We're playing at a high level. We're doing all the things we've been taught to do and we practiced doing and that we did the week before. So stay in the same mindset, stay aggressive, stay locked in and focused on the adjustments that naturally happen in the second half. And then after the game, when you don't do it, you're looking for answers. And really, after a loss, and I'm getting too comfortable with these, but you're really you're trying to keep your guys together. And really, the thing I talked about was, anytime you give a game away, it's super easy to start pointing the finger, right? It's because really everybody is at fault. So you start saying, "Oh, it was his fault," because you don't want the pain of looking in the mirror and saying it's your fault. So I said, just to avoid doing that. Like, they'll regret that the rest of their lives if they start pointing the finger at teammates and, breaking apart from within. There's nothing worse than when you're part of a team and it starts eroding from within because of finger pointing and blame. And so, hey, we got to find a way to shake it off and come in and get back to work and try to win the rest of them.
Trent Dilfer, the UAB head coach here on the Inferno. So I'm watching that game and I'm thinking, okay, we get a victory here. We got to win a few more and we're going to be bowl eligible. I was thinking I'm a glass half full kind of guy. And obviously that didn't happen. So for the rest of the season, what do you want to see from your football team from this point forward?
Well, there's always something to play for. Obviously, you want to be in a bowl game. There's a lot of reasons you want to go to a bowl, but when that's not realistic anymore, you still got things to play for. You're playing for your family name. You're playing for your institution. You're playing for
your seniors. Yeah,
your value. You're playing for your seniors. There's all kinds of things you're playing for. You're trying to play for playing time next year. So I think there's plenty to play for. The interesting about having the Battle for the Bones coming up is this is our bowl game. This is your rivalry game. Play for a trophy. You're at their place, which is a bowl venue. It's a national televised game. So there's a lot, especially this week, to get up for. And this group has shown some real resilience in the ability to bounce back. And I don't expect any different this week. In fact, it'll be pretty matter of fact tonight when I get with them. It's like, this is the expectation, to do what you've done all year long and bounce back and have a great week of practice and hopefully go play better.
Get it done, man.
Amen.
Go at it. And we're all behind you and we supported you big time. What was your feeling? How did you feel the first time you came into a lot of money in your life? and I would say that now that could be in college, but it's not in college anymore. Now a guy could come into $1 million in college. And I'm not going to ask you specifically. I remember Aldo Greco used to do a show with him for almost 15, 20 years, and he was telling me the first time he signed like $1 million deal, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's a $1 million deal. You're going to get like an $800,000 bonus. Do you remember how you felt the first time that you had more money than you ever had in your life?
Yeah, my wife and I were married in college, and we lived off $471. That was my Pell Grant and stipend. And then she actually stopped swimming. She was a college swimmer. She stopped swimming, got a job where she made $1,000 a month coaching and went to school. So we were living off about $1,400 a month, and we felt great. Like that was plenty of money. And then when I got drafted, back then you signed these massive trading card deals. You sign your these licensing deals, and I can't remember if mine was a Donruss or Topps or one of those, and it was a couple $100,000. And I remember getting the money, and it was like in my bank account. And I'm like, what is this? Like, you go to the ATM and used to seeing like, $112 in there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see, $148,000 in there. And it was overwhelming. I had good people in my life that, counseled me well and made sure that I wasn't lame with it, that I was making some good decisions. And immediately you start taking out, you start saving. And then I knew my contract was coming whenever I signed it. I held out for a long time, but a big contract's coming. You know where you're slotted, so the amount of millions you're going to make. And I think more than anything else I've learned about money was it just makes life more convenient. It doesn't make it better. It just makes it more convenient.
Were you not the one that said on this show that it doesn't really change you? It just makes you more of who you were before?
Yeah, it makes you more of what you were before you got it.
Yeah.
That's basic.
That's brilliant.
Basic rule of money, and especially with athletes. So, we were very fortunate. We had a lot of money at a young age, but we had good people around us too that, like I said, that helped us make wise decisions and make sure you don't have a ton of cash on hand. I think that's a big thing I try to tell young athletes who are going to have a lot of money is, that's fine. Have a lot of net worth. Don't have a lot of cash.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You have cash, you're going to spend it.
Yeah. Charles Barkley was on our show numerous times, and he was in town for an uncle's funeral in Hueytown. And I didn't know this uncle real well, and he said, the only reason I'm here for this uncle's funeral is because he's the only guy in my family that didn't ask me for anything. Yeah. And he went on to talk about not only his gambling habits, how he goes to play blackjack, two hands, $25,000 a piece. He goes through $1 million, and when he gets through $1 million, it's over, or he'll get up $3 million, he'll walk away from the table. And he said, when I first got real rich and got my first really big deal with Philadelphia and then another one, Phoenix, and I was making more money with TNT he's ever made in his life. And it's amazing. He said, I sat down with everyone that I thought I knew and said, listen, I'm going to give everyone what they want as long as it's not crazy. But don't ask me again because I know it's coming. But don't ask me again. And he said, I swear 99% of those people came back and said, hey, you know that 25 grand you gave me? I just need a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. And he just got, he's like, it just ruined so many things in his family. What did you do when your family knew that you came into some money?
We wanted to help them. So my mom, I was able to let my mom retire. She was an educator for years. So we paid off all their debt. She worked for my LLC, so she was able to make enough money to retire. We were able to help my sisters, bought them all cars. We paid for one of my sisters' full education at the University of San Diego. So, nice. That's big nut. Helped with the in-laws on stuff, but we did things because we wanted to. They never really asked. And then we've always believed in being generous to the communities we live in, and have given lots of money away that way. But it is an issue, and I've seen a lot of teammates faced with it, and I was faced with it, and people keep coming back for more, and they feel like because they had some role in your success, which is fair, it takes a village, that they deserve some economic reward from it. And you find yourself having to learn at a very young age how to say no with grace, but I've seen a lot of athletes really, really struggle. A lot of my teammates have really struggled saying no to their families, and it guts them. Their families end up bleeding them dry. And that's the thing about professional athletes is, you're making a lot of money, but you're making for a short amount of time. Yeah. And if you're smart, when you're young, you take a lot of the money you make and you put it away for future wealth, and you don't spend it. That's why I say I think the two biggest things you can learn as a young athlete are, one, to set a budget, right? And then only have at hand what you need to live by that budget. And then, be very wise with your financial planning for the future, because you may only play 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years. You got to make sure that you've put yourself and your family in a position where you don't go from rich to broke real quick.
Like Joe Burrow only lives off his endorsements.
Yeah. A lot of guys have moved to that formula.
And that wasn't always like that. I mean, endorsements weren't really there until the shoe thing came about, and now all of a sudden, Shaquille O'Neal selling everything along with Snoop Dogg. It seems like I can't see a commercial without those guys. So what would you say to some of these youngsters who are now coming into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars? First of all, you got to pay taxes on that stuff. Yeah. But you got a lot of 18, 19-year-old kids who are coming into some money from inner city schools that had never seen more than a $20 bill in their pocket, and all of a sudden they're being showered with things. They're driving Mercedes-Benz. Listen, part of me says, whenever I say to myself, I deserve this, I know I'm in trouble. You deserve this. No, you really don't. And you brought up something really interesting. You're only as good as your last injury. And if you believe that you're going to have a 10 or 15-year existence in the National Football League, first of all, you better be a kicker. It just doesn't happen. And you got to save that money. You got your pension and everything else. So what would you say to these young kids who are now coming into this kind of cash, knowing that perhaps down the road it's not coming?
Well, I think one thing as institutions we have to do a good job, and we do a good job here at UAB, not that they have that type of money, but you need partnerships with people like Regions or Legacy, PNC, that will come in and have third-party financial experts kind of work with the kids and be like, hey, here's some basic things. Number one, taxes. Number two, you can put X amount in your savings, and here's some safe investment opportunities, and kind of teach them how to store away their money. Yeah. I think every institution needs to do that, especially the ones that have guys making a couple $1 million. The advice I would give them is, choose a number, whatever it is per month that you feel like you need to live off of, right? And then, have a third party that you
$80,000.
yeah, whatever it is, have a third party that you trust help you put the rest away, and where you cannot get to it. I think that's the thing, is you can't touch it, because if it's available to you, you are going to spend it.
That's a good way of dealing with family too.
Yeah, exactly.
When you put it in a trust, say, I'm sorry, I just can't.
I can't access.
I can't access it.
I just can't access that money. I mean, one of the best things my wife and I did was we took a ton of money and put it in a long-term annuity that we were penalized if we ever took it out of. So when people thought, because they saw what I was making publicly, that I had all this cash on hand, I was like, no, I don't have access to that money.
Did it bother you when a contract would come up, and everyone knows that you don't know what the IBM executive, the radio guy makes. You don't know, but you know the football player.
You just kind of get used to it. And, especially after you've done a few. Like, I think I had 5 or 6 NFL contracts. So you just over time, you just realize that it's, everybody's going to know what your contract is, and they do treat you differently, but that's part of the deal.
Yeah. To keep in the locker room, yes or no? I'm going to ask you as we do our closing thoughts coming up here next. And, of course, today's Coach's Corner brought to you by Aviva Health and Pepsi. That's our hot topic. Micah Parsons had something very interesting to say yesterday, I thought, after the game. And I know this podcast won't be listened to for a couple days after that, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that as a former NFL player. Coming up next.
Are you getting sacked by monthly fees on your checking account? Trent Dilfer here, head coach of the UAB Blazers. Legacy Credit Union's everyday checking account can get you back in the game. No minimum balance, no monthly fees, and get paid up to 2 days early. Check out LegacyCreditUnion.com for more information and apply today. Legacy, the official credit union of UAB.
Our closing thoughts here with Trent Dilfer, the UAB head coach. Micah Parsons, you saw what he had to say about McCarthy? Okay.
No.
Basically was asked after the Dallas Cowboys just got bludgeoned by the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, said something about McCarthy, said, listen, he can go do whatever he wants. He can leave. I don't care. But he was talking about the Zacks and the guys in the football team that really bust their ass week in and week out and really have nothing to show for it. And he said those guys have worked their tails off more than Coach McCarthy will ever work his tail off. He has no clue how hard these guys are working to play the game. I paraphrase. A lot of people had issues with what he had to say. First of all, Mike hasn't been playing. Yeah. And now, of course, he played yesterday. A lot of people were like, that's a locker room thing. You don't bring that out. And again, you're talking about a coach who's won a Super Bowl. And I think a lot of people thought he's going back to 12-win seasons, so he's gotten it done at Dallas, and obviously there's a lot of injuries, and now Dak is out. Your thoughts on what that means for this organization? Should they hire Deion Sanders? That's out there right now.
Well, I do think Deion would be a great NFL coach. I think his model would work in the league. But Coach McCarthy's been a successful coach for a long time, and he has worked very hard. And I think the thing you have to be a coach. You have to both play and coach to realize there's a different type of hard work. Mm-hmm. Sure, he hasn't laid it out on the line physically like some of those guys are doing, but Coach McCarthy, in his early days was famous for being the hardest working coach in all of football, working 22, 23-hour days, sleeping in the office. So there's a different type of work ethic that a coach takes. I think anytime players start talking about internal business, it's bad for the program. It's just bad. There's nothing good comes out of it. I think you have to start educating your players at a young age, because a lot of them feel like they are brands and they need to speak to their people and they get encouraged to do so. But that hurts teams. Anytime it comes out of the intimacy of the locker room, it's going to be bad for you. It never goes good. I can't think of one time it's ever gone good in my years and years being around football. But I do think that's on the coach and the other coaches and veteran leaders to educate young players at a young age that nothing good is going to come out of going to the media and airing dirty laundry.
What would be the biggest challenge for Deion Sanders to be successful in the National Football League? I could be honest with you, last year, obviously, they started hot. They fell off. I was like, there you go. It's not as easy as you think. And a lot of people were like, he doesn't want to have to deal with this NIL crap and all this other stuff in college. He'd rather go straight to the pros and deal with people that obviously respect him. Would he be successful? What would be his biggest challenge?
He'll be successful because he treats his people well. and you have to treat your people well. He'd have to hire really strong coordinators because he's more the CEO type. He doesn't lean into defense, lean into offense. He's not going to call plays. So you got to hire really strong coordinators that are aligned with you. And I think that's something that a lot of coaches in the NFL, college, the mistake they make is they go hire somebody because an agent tells them he's really good, or you might have watched him on TV be successful, but you don't know the why behind it. They kind of got to be your kind of guys and be aligned and believe philosophically what you believe in. I think Deion does a great job with accountability. I think in the NFL, it's something that the good teams do have still, is they still have accountability to one another. There's nothing that I don't think Deion can't be successful in. He's always been successful at whatever he does. So, and he's a much better man than people give him credit for. He really is a good man, and he cares about the people he coaches and the people that work for him. And he'll bring a ton of attention to whatever franchise he's with, but that's not going to be a bad thing because that's going to sell tickets and that's going to put butts in seats and that's going to get players paid more. And the one thing about the NFL is players understand that if you're filling the seats and if your franchise is doing well, then you're going to get paid more money, and that's ultimately what they want. So I think Prime is built for he's obviously built for college. He's built for whatever he wants to be built for. The guy is a difference maker and will win at whatever level he coaches.
He's got some endorsements too.
Yeah,
he's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
The Inferno, you can hear every single week, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It's available on every major industry. Of course, UABsports.com. You can check it out there, as well as Tony Curry Radio, TKR. We're also available on every industry. Coach, go get them. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you,
man. There he is. This is the Inferno. This episode of The Inferno is presented by Pearl River Resort. Call on an early weekend and head over to Pearl River Resort, where it's always no work and all play at Silverstar, Golden Moon, and Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. And be sure to catch the big game excitement at Timeout Lounge.